Thanks for the help, Jimmy, I expressed gratefully as I maneuvered the mower back into its spot in my parents' garage. No worries, bro. I promised Mom I'd be here anyway. She was worried Dad might try mowing with one arm. She's probably right, he would, Jimmy chuckled. Yeah, Dad's a tough one. Didn't take us long though, so how about I treat us to milkshakes at DQ? We entered the house and informed Mom that the lawn was done. Dad was napping on the couch. We decided not to disturb him. He'd fractured his left arm in a work accident, and while it was healing well, Mom didn't want him pushing himself. Thanks for coming over, boys. I knew that stubborn old man would try to do it himself rather than ask for help, Mom remarked. Happy to help, Mom. With Jimmy pitching in, it was a breeze, I replied. Would you boys like to stay for dinner, or do you have plans? Mom asked. Jimmy answered first, I've got a date tonight. We're checking out that new restaurant on Broad Street. I've got a darts match at the pub hoping to score a free pizza from the losers, I added, laughing. At DQ, the parking lot was busy. Since our local spot lacked a drive-thru, we went inside to order. As Jimmy teased me about my brotherly duties, I couldn't help noticing an attractive woman ahead of us in line. Her figure caught my eye, especially in those snug shorts and cropped tee. My brother noticed me looking and glanced over. We both admired the view briefly until she turned and caught my gaze. She smiled and said, Do I pass inspection? I stumbled for words, yes, definitely. She grinned wider, glad you approve. Now, if you two will excuse me. Oh, sure, sorry, I managed as she walked past, mesmerizing us both until Jimmy nudged me back to reality. After grabbing our shakes, we headed back to the car. Jimmy nudged me again, nodding toward a flashy red Miata. The girl from earlier was in the passenger seat, enjoying her cone and chatting with her friend. Nice car, I commented as we passed by. She glanced over it and quipped, Oh, so you inspect cars too? Her friend joined in laughter at the jest as we continued on our way. Well, I reserve my inspections for things that truly catch my attention, I replied with a playful smile. The girl in the driver's seat playfully nudged her sister, saying, Uh-oh, sis. Watch out for this one, he's quite smooth. Not too smooth, though. He did get caught staring at my behind, I admitted, teasingly. We all shared a laugh, and I extended my hand. Hi, I'm John Rollins, and this is my brother, Jim. The passenger adjusted her cone before shaking my hand. Nice to meet you, John. I'm Amy Matthews, and this is my sister, Jill. After some casual conversation over our ice cream, Jill started her car. Oh, Amy, could I get your number? Maybe we could talk sometime? I asked nervously. Amy grinned, Sure, give me your phone. After entering her number and exchanging contacts, they waved as they drove off. Jim and I returned to my car, and I saved her number in my contacts. Turning to Jim with a grin, I couldn't contain my excitement. Bro, she's amazing. And her sister's cute too. Do me a favor, when you call Amy, ask for Jill's number for me. I vividly recall that day, as if it were yesterday, not 13 years ago. I did call Amy, we dated, things got serious, and we eventually married. Jim married Jill about 2 years after I married Amy. Together, Jim and I started our own electrical services company, while Amy now manages our office. Jill became a nurse at a specialty clinic and has since had 2 daughters with Jim. However, life threw a curveball. Despite our struggles, Amy eventually gave birth to our son, Brian, who is now 8 years old. He's vibrant, intelligent, and strikingly resembles me, so much so that I never doubted he was mine. That is, until today, when I reviewed the DNA results from a kit he had used. It started innocently enough with Brian's curiosity about our family tree. He ordered a DNA test kit after his cousins did, but due to delays, our samples were sent a year later. The results showed connections between Jim and Brian that shouldn't exist if I were Brian's biological father. It indicated Jim was his father instead. I read the report over and over, trying to comprehend its implications. There it was, clear as day, I was related to Brian, but not his biological father. I sank back into my chair, struggling to process the shock. How could this happen? Could it really be my brother? Just then, I heard the garage door opening. Amy and Brian were home. Hastily, I stuffed the report back into its envelope and hurried upstairs. I stashed the envelope in my dresser drawer and returned downstairs. Brian darted straight to the kitchen, grabbing snacks and heading to his room without seeming to notice me. Amy breezed into the kitchen and paused upon seeing me. "John? I thought you weren't coming back until later. Didn't you go to Miller's to look at that panel?" she asked. "I did, but he wasn't there. He called and asked me to come back tomorrow. It was my last appointment, so I came home. Is that a problem?" I replied, my tone edged with frustration. Amy caught the tone immediately. "Of course. John? What's wrong? Is something bothering you?" "Yeah, something's very wrong. I need you to come upstairs with me. Now," I demanded, my voice urgent and commanding. "John, you're scaring me. What's going on?" Amy hurried to keep up as I stomped up the stairs. Our bedroom was far from Brian's, where the sounds of his Xbox could faintly be heard. I entered our room and held the door for Amy. "Sit," I instructed sharply, pointing to the bed. I then grabbed the DNA report. "Do you want to explain this to me? Do you want to tell me how this could be true?" I thrust the report toward her. Amy looked at the envelope with confusion. "John, you helped him order this, not me. I thought it was unnecessary, but you wanted it. What's going on?" "Open it," I shouted, feeling my control slipping. Stepping back, I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. "Read it. Read it and explain it to me." Amy quickly scanned the report and gasped aloud. "No. This can't be right. There must be a mistake. John, I swear to you, this isn't true." "Amy, it clearly says Jim is his father. How long has this been going on? How could you do this to me?" "I haven't. I've never." "John, are you out of your mind? Jim is married to my sister. DNA doesn't lie. We were desperate to have a child, but I never imagined." My voice cracked with disbelief. "He's my brother. John, please, this has to be a mistake. I swear to you, I never had an affair with Jimmy. Let's calm down and think about this logically." I took several deep breaths, trying to steady myself. Could there be an explanation I hadn't considered? Was I jumping to conclusions? Without another thought, I grabbed my phone and dialed Jimmy's number. "Hello? Jimmy? Have you ever been with Amy?" Laughter echoed through the line. "Come on, bro, just finished. She was fantastic. I'll send her back once she gets dressed." More laughter followed. "I'm dead serious, Jimmy. When was the last time you were with Amy?" "John? Are you out of your mind? What the hell is wrong with you? Why would you say something like that? Please tell me this is some sick joke." "Yeah, it's a joke, and the joke's on me. You can deny it all you want, but the DNA doesn't lie." "Oh my God. Tell me you didn't accuse Amy of cheating on you." There was a moment of silence. "Damn it. You did. You idiot. I don't know what you're on, but you're messing up big time. I'm coming over." I dropped the phone. Amy was crying uncontrollably, shaking her head and repeating no. "No. No. He's on his way. When he gets here, I want the truth from both of you." "John, please, I'm telling you the truth. The report must be wrong. I swear to you, I've never cheated on you. Not once." I looked at Amy, the woman I loved and trusted above all others. She pleaded with me, her eyes desperate. My anger began to dissipate, replaced by confusion and hurt. Tears welled up in my eyes. She stood up, reaching out to me, and I pulled her into my arms. "I'm sorry. I want to believe you, but the report is clear. Could there have been a mistake?" Did something happen with him that you thought was me? Maybe at one of those conventions, when you had a few drinks. Please, I need to understand what happened. No, baby, no. Nothing like that ever happened. Jim is your brother, he loves you, and he would never do anything to hurt you. A car screeched into our driveway, and seconds later, Jim was calling my name. Amy and I went to the top of the stairs and began descending. Jim was pacing back and forth, a storm of anger on his face. Seeing Amy's tears, his rage turned on me. Did you hurt her? You idiot, I'll kick your ass. No, Jimmy. He didn't touch me. It's this. Amy thrust the report at him. He snatched it and started reading, then staggered back, collapsing onto the couch. What the hell? This can't be right. There's no way. John, I would never do this to you, you have to believe me. This has to be some horrible mistake. You need to sue these people. I looked at both of them, seeing the truth in their eyes. I shook my head. I believe you, both of you. I just panicked when I saw the report. It has to be a mistake. I'm sorry. You better be sorry. How could you ever think I would betray you like that? Jesus. You're my big brother. And Amy. My God, you know she would never do that. Amy hugged me tightly. Baby, I understand why you were upset, but it hurts that you could believe something like that. I know, I'm deeply sorry. I lost control there for a moment. I owe you both a huge apology. I love and trust you more than anyone else in the world. I'm so sorry for doubting you, I confessed to Amy, feeling the weight of my mistake. Jim stood up, holding the report out. You should order another test from a different company. When those results come in, demand your money back from these idiots, he suggested, clearly frustrated. I hugged him tightly, expressing my remorse once more. I hope I didn't upset Jill too much when I called. Thankfully, Jill didn't hear anything. She's at soccer practice with the girls, Jim replied. You're lucky. I'm sure my little sister wouldn't be happy if she heard you accuse her husband of having an affair with her sister, I admitted ruefully. Jim shuddered dramatically. Whoa, let's not even imagine that. Let's wait for the new test results, and then we can explain everything to her. Sounds like a plan. Then when she finds out I thought Jim and I were involved, we can all laugh about my ridiculous suspicion, I said with a wry smile. Fair enough. I guess I deserve that. I'll order another kit and tell Brian the first results got lost, Jim agreed, trying to lighten the mood. 2 weeks later, during my parents' annual midsummer fishing trip for the grandkids, Amy and I found ourselves with some rare adult time at home. Jill called and invited us over for dinner, drinks, and a swim in their pool that Saturday night. Amy eagerly accepted the invitation. I had some yard work to finish up on Saturday, and Jim planned to do the same. Jill and Amy went shopping for swimsuits and food for the evening. Amy called me as I was heading out to join them, informing me she would help Jill with the preparations and I should come over when I was ready. Just as I was about to leave, a delivery van pulled up and the driver rushed to my door. I picked up the priority mail envelope from the porch. It was the new test results. I had forgotten I opted for rapid response. I slipped the envelope into my back pocket and headed to Jim's house. Inside, the kitchen was bustling with activity. The girls were preparing for dinner, and I showed Jill the wine I brought. She asked for a glass, and Amy quickly requested one too. After pouring their wine, I joined Jim on the deck where he was tending to the grill. I handed him a beer and admired the steaks. These look amazing, bro, I remarked. Yeah, got them from Smith's. Thick-cut porterhouse, prime grade. Hope you're hungry. Jim replied with a grin. Starving. Skipped lunch to get the lawn done in time, I chuckled, feeling grateful for the normalcy of the moment after the turmoil of recent weeks. We chatted while Jim grilled the steak and veggies, and soon the sisters joined us for a pleasant meal. As we started clearing the dishes, Jim noticed something in my pocket. It took a moment for me to remember the lab report I had stashed there earlier, and I pulled it out. It's the new lab report. The guy delivered it just as I was leaving, I explained. Amy and Jill returned to the deck, and Jim mentioned I had something to share. We gathered at the table, and I showed the envelope to Amy. "What's that?" Jill asked, looking curious. "It's the family DNA results. Brian wanted us to get one after he saw yours," I replied. "What? I thought you said it wasn't necessary since ours showed the whole Rollins family tree." "You said it would be a waste of money," Jill said, looking concerned. "It didn't cost much, Jill. Relax. Let's open it and see," Amy reassured her. I tore open the envelope and handed the report to Amy. She unfolded it, and Jim leaned in to read over her shoulder. "What the hell?" they both exclaimed simultaneously. Amy shook the papers at me. "Did you do this? This isn't funny. Where's the real report?" I snatched the report from her, scanning it. There it was, John Rollins' relative and James Rollins' father. My mind spun. Oh my God, it's true. I'm not his father. How could you two lie to me like this? I believed you. I looked at Jim, who looked utterly bewildered, and then at Jill, whose face was now streaked with tears. "Please forgive me, John. She's my sister. I love her." "I had to do it," Jill sobbed. She was suffering. I couldn't let her suffer anymore. "What did you do?" Jim demanded, his voice full of anguish. "What did you do?" Amy turned to her sister urgently. "Jill, what did you do? Explain this." Jill looked at each of us, gathering herself before speaking. "At the clinic, after 3 failed attempts, John, you didn't want to try again. You couldn't bear to see Amy in so much pain. I couldn't bear it either. So, when Jim agreed to get a vasectomy, I lied and said we needed a before sample from him for medical records. I mixed the samples. When you came in with John, Jim had already provided his sample." She looked at Jim with remorse in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Jim. I had to do it." Amy was stunned, her hand over her mouth. You did that?" Jill nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes. I couldn't stand to see you suffer anymore, Amy. When we found out you were pregnant, we were all so happy. I convinced myself that Brian was John's miracle, despite the possibility he could be Jim's. Their DNA is so close, I believed it wouldn't matter." Amy shook her head in disbelief. "Jill, how could you do this to me? You could have talked to me, to all of us, but you just went ahead. My God, I have a baby with your husband." Jim grabbed me, his voice filled with sincerity. "John, I swear I had no idea. If you had come to me, asked me to do this, I don't know what I would have said." Amy clung to me desperately. "John, what are we going to tell Brian? What are we going to do? You're his father, the only father he's ever known. How can this be happening?" I gently guided Amy towards the front door. "We need some time to figure this out. I'll call you tomorrow," I promised Jill, who sobbed in sorrow. "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt anyone." When we got home, I carried Amy to bed. She wept as she held onto me tightly. After laying her down, we held each other, crying ourselves to sleep. I woke slowly, everything rushing back to me. Amy wasn't beside me. I found her asleep in Brian's bed, clutching his pillow. I had no idea how long she'd been there. Downstairs, I made coffee, grappling with my emotions. I was furious with Jill for putting us in this mess, yet without her, Brian wouldn't exist. She could have asked us, though. But would Jim have agreed? I would have, but Amy might not have wanted Jim as Brian's father. Jill must have had these same thoughts. Maybe that's why she acted alone. But how could she give away her husband's child? And Jim, he loves his daughters, but every man wants a son. How will he cope with Brian believing he's just an uncle? My coffee cooled, so I reheated it, lost in thought. Amy came in quietly. I held her close as we stood by the microwave, waiting. When my coffee dinged, she fetched hers. We sat silently, sipping our coffee. Eventually, Amy looked up at me. What are we going to do? I met her gaze, her eyes red from tears. What do you feel we should do? What does your heart say is right? I need to know what you're feeling right now. God, what a mess. No matter what my sister did, the bottom line is, I am Brian's mother, and you are my husband, the only father he has ever known. We are a family. I don't want any of that to change. What about you? What do you want to do? You're right, it's a mess. I love Brian just as much today as I did before I saw the report. He is, and always will be, my son. None of this is your fault. I couldn't love you any more than I do right now. You are my wife, and hopefully, you will be my wife forever. I love our life together with Brian, and I don't want that to change. Amy let out a long breath and smiled, reaching for my hand. Okay, now what do we do about Jill and Jimmy? We need to talk with them and figure out where they stand. I know Jim must be very angry with Jill. She gave away his only son. I have no idea how he'll deal with that. As for Jill, well, I hate her for what she did to us, but I love her for what she did for us. Do you know what I mean? Exactly. She did a terrible thing, but Brian is a wonderful result. She did it out of love for me, but it has caused both of us great pain. Like you, I hate her and love her for what she did. We have to call them this morning and come to some agreement before the kids come home. Jill and Jimmy shuffled in an hour later, looking like they hadn't slept much. I poured more coffee, and we gathered in my family room. I took the lead. We are family, we love each other, and we all love the kids. We need to decide what's best for everyone involved and how we deal with this going forward. Amy and I want to hear from you, Jimmy. We need to know what you think should be done. I'm so angry with Jill right now. God, what a mess this is. Jimmy's glare pierced Jill as she hid her tear-streaked face. The truth is, I don't know what to do. Brian is my son, but you're his father. What the hell do I do with that? Part of me is excited to know I have a son, but I could never take him away from you, and he'd hate me if I tried. Legally, in Ohio, the state says you're the father because he was born in your marriage and your name is on his birth certificate. They don't care about DNA. At least, that's what I read online, for whatever that's worth. Jimmy, are you suggesting we get lawyers involved in this? I asked. Oh, hell no. This is a mess, but we've got to work it out amongst ourselves. Look, I love you, you're my brother. I don't want to hurt you, but he is my son, and I think he needs to know that. No. Amy shouted. He is my son, and telling him John is not his father will crush him. He's too young to understand the biology. John is his father. End of story. I raised my hand to calm her. Amy, please. I agree with Jim that Brian needs to know the truth. But he needs to know it when he's old enough to understand. I turned to Jim. Is that what you meant? Yes, exactly, Jim affirmed. Amy, I'm sorry. It would be a terrible thing to tell him now. But at a time when we all agree, he should know the complete truth. Amy looked at me, and I nodded in agreement. She sighed deeply, okay, but not anytime soon. He's only 8 years old. Jimmy nodded his approval. Yeah, I'm thinking 17 or 18, something like that. All right, let's agree. We won't do anything to change anything until Brian is 17. Then we will all decide together when and what exactly to tell him. Jimmy, are you sure you can live with that? I hate it, but it's what's best for him. I'll always do what's best for him. I hugged my brother. I knew you'd say that because you love him, just like I do. Jill, you've been very quiet. What do you have to say about all this? Jill sobbed louder. Amy went over and put an arm around her. Jill, you're my sister, and I love you. I'm not sure I can ever forgive you for what you've done to my family, but without you, my beautiful boy would never have been born. So I can't hate you for what you did. I hope you'll continue to be Brian's favorite aunt. Amy squeezed her shoulders and then kissed the top of her head. So, how are things with you two? Can you live with what she did? My brother looked away from his sobbing wife and sighed. She messed us all up. She could have told us her plan, but she decided to just do it and didn't care about us. Jim, I think it's pretty clear that her motivation was her love for her sister. She simply didn't want to risk having one of us shoot down her plan. She had one chance, one shot, and she took it. Yes, it was wrong, a terrible thing to do to us, but she's not terrible. She was desperate to help her suffering sister, and it gave us Brian. I can't hate her for that. Jim looked at the floor. He took a deep breath, got up, and walked over to his wife. He wrapped his arms around her, and she pressed into him, sobbing loudly. He whispered into her ear, "Stop crying and kiss me, you crazy woman." Epilogue. Things gradually returned to normal. I made sure Jim was involved in as much of Brian's life as possible. As Brian grew older, he started to resemble Jim a bit more, but it wasn't unusual for family members to share similar traits. As a group, we decided to tell Brian the story of his conception shortly before he turned 18. At first, he thought it was a joke, but when faced with the truth, he handled it surprisingly well. At one point, he turned to Jill and thanked her for making his life possible. She broke down and cried like a baby. Then he asked us not to tell his cousins and requested that we continue as we had been. I think Jim was a little hurt by that, but he understood. Life can be complicated, but love will always see you through. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.